Good evening and welcome to the Press Box. My name is Melissa Ponzio, and for the next 30 minutes I'll be your host. With me tonight are Jay and Ty. How you guys doing?
All right.
All right, well, let's start things off tonight by talking about the Atlanta Knights, and the new coach comes along and has a big influence.
Well, the first game that he definitely had was a big bang, I'll tell you that. But I don't think the new coach, Jay, is going to make a whole lot of difference here. Not this season. In the future, maybe so. I think this team is pretty well blended together now, and they have their solid line together, LaRouche, Medill, and Drulia. This team, Jay, is playing really well right now, and they got two critical games coming up this week against Milwaukee at home. And I think those games are going to be very critical for Milwaukee because the Knights are leading by 7 points, and they have 2 games in hand on them. So I'm thinking that maybe they can almost stick a fork in Milwaukee pretty soon if they sweep these 2 games.
They could. The only thing I don't like about the new coach is he's has more of a stand-up to him, and let's mix it up with the fisticuffs, that kind of attitude. And the Knights are a lot faster, and they're a lot more skilled than the other teams in the IHL. Milwaukee, hopefully, they'll have drunk too much beer to compete. And you're right, if the Knights win these 2 games, that should sew up the division.
Okay.
Not only that, there's 5 games coming up between these 2 clubs in March. 4 out of 5 are in Atlanta.
What's it going to take for them to take Milwaukee?
They really need to use their speed, drive to the net, like dump it in, drive to the net. Milwaukee has a good defenseman, but if they make them spin around out there, they'll be able to outplay them.
Yep.
Okay, how about March Madness? Oh, wait, before we go on to March Madness, I almost forgot, and our producer would kill me if I didn't do this. We have our weekly schedule of sports for hockey. Let's take a look at that, and we have Milwaukee at Atlanta this Thursday at 7:30 and Friday at 7:30. Then we have Kansas City and Atlanta Sunday at 7:30. So let's not neglect those nights because we love them. Now let's go to March Madness. And Ty said that Tech would be there, and guess what? He was wrong.
And
Ty?
who said they wouldn't be there?
Okay, Jay.
All right, well, personally, I still thought I would have put them in. I would have put in Georgia Tech before Seton Hall. Seton Hall was 17-12 in a weaker conference. Georgia Tech had a stronger out-of-conference schedule, and also the ACC is a tougher league. I really don't think the Big East had any business getting 6 teams in this thing, but they did. I really think that first game in the ACC tournament really hurt Georgia Tech here. And it's funny because the ACC tournament last year helped them, Jay. You remember they were a bubble team last year. They won the tournament. They went to a 4 seed and then really got embarrassed by Southern. And I just wonder if the committee remembered that and said, well, you're not going to do this to me 2 years in a row.
Well, I think it was more than their out-of-conference schedule. They did play a tough out-of-conference schedule, but they just stunk in the ACC. They lost to Florida State, and they lost to NC State. Those teams, they had no business being on the same court with a Tech. And, sure, they had a couple of good games against North Carolina, but you can't just play 2 good games again in the tournament. And I think, like I said last week, Tech didn't deserve to be there, and that's why they're not there.
Yep.
Okay, well, before we go on, let me give out the phone number. Our phone number here is 873-6713, and if you can call in with any questions or comments, we are live. Now, I would like your pick for the Final Four. Jay, why don't you go first?
I think it's going to be Wisconsin Marquette and Wisconsin Green Bay. No, I think in the West is a really tough bracket. I think you got Louisville in there and Arizona, and Missouri's a top seed, but you can look for them to get bounced out right away. I think Louisville will probably go from the West. The East, North Carolina, they're just a good team. They got a good coach, even though he ruined the game by putting in a shot clock because of his little spread the court thing. And in the Southeast, Kentucky, and in the Midwest, Purdue. Is that right?
No, Purdue was in the Southeast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, Arkansas is in the Midwest, and I think Kentucky.
Ty?
Okay, well, out West, Jay, I'm going to disagree with you. I think the West is the easiest bracket.
What?
Yes, I think it's the easiest one, and I think out there, my pick from the West is going to be Arizona. I think their guard play will be able to lead them through. Arizona has been stumped in the first game the past couple of years, and that makes me worry a little bit, but I think they have veteran players. I think Arizona is very good, matches up very well with teams out in this bracket. In the Southeast, I like Kentucky. They're playing well right now, and Rick Pitino is changing up his defenses now. He's got very talented basketball players and great athletes, and he's going to be winning with a lot of defense, I think, in this tournament. Again, I think Kentucky matches up well in this bracket because there's not too many dominating centers. In the Midwest, I like Michigan. Arkansas is the #1 seed over there, but when I look at this Michigan club last year, I thought they beat the best team, Kentucky. Kentucky was a team that plays very similar to Arkansas. They come out, they trap, they press, they really try to force turnovers. They could not do that to Michigan because their guards were too tall. Jalen Rose is still there. I think that's going to help Michigan go to the Final Four. Not only that, those players know how to win in a tournament, except maybe for the big one. And finally, in the East, I agree with you. North Carolina. I think that's a pretty easy region also. I think North Carolina matches up really well.
All right, well, we have a phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
Hi, Todd. Hi, Jay. This is Vanessa.
Hey.
Hi, Vanessa.
Jay, I couldn't help but to hear that last comment about Georgia Tech.
Huh?
You said they didn't deserve to be there. Now, they had a pretty good team this year, and maybe it's good they didn't go because of the injuries they had, but I don't know about them not deserving to be there.
They didn't have a good enough record to be there. And you'll see when they lose to Siena that they didn't even deserve to be in the NIT.
Okay, what about California? How do you think they're going to do in this?
I think California can be very dangerous. Again, they're out there in the West. I think they're eventually going to match up with Syracuse. Syracuse, I think, has a bonehead for a coach. I think they're major underachievers year after year with all the talent that they have. But one thing that I will give Syracuse, normally they're a horrible free throw shooting team. This year they led the Big East in free throw shooting, and that may make them a little tougher to beat. But Jason Kidd and Lamont Murray, they're money players. I think California is going to go
Hey, their first game is against a
deep.
tough fighting Phoenix of UWGB. Watch out for that team. They almost upset Michigan State.
Okay, and one more question. I'm going to hang up. Who do you think is going to be in the Final Four?
We just went over that.
Oh,
I know.
Well, hey, Vanessa, thanks so much for calling.
We'll call you back to let you know.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. What a sweetie. Okay, well, what
Wait, back to Michigan. I don't think Michigan's going to be in the Final Four this year. I think they're lacking the ingredient of the Weber, the go-to guy, the guy that can dump it down low. Howard hadn't proven that he can play. I don't know whether his back is bothering him still or not. Anytime you lose to Northwestern, I mean, that's like losing to Princeton or Harvard or something like that.
There were major upsets all over the place on Saturday.
I know, but you just if they wanted to go to the Final Four, they should have won the Big Ten, okay? Purdue won the Big Ten because they have the go-to guy. They got Glenn Robinson, the best player in college basketball this year. You can dump it down to him. He may pull a Danny Manning here and carry that team all the way through. If you remember when Kansas won, they had Manning and then an average supporting cast and a pretty good coach. Well, I think that's the way Purdue is. Katie's a pretty good coach. They got an average supporting cast, but if they play half court, they'll play with anybody. They'll play with anybody.
They're in a region. They're in that region with Kentucky, and I think Purdue will go a long way. But running into Kentucky, I think will be tough. One thing I do like about Purdue, though, is that they can handle the pressure. When they played against a pressing team like Iowa this year, at Iowa, they just threw over that 2-1-2 zone every time and got bucket after bucket on those guys.
Is AC Earl still at Iowa?
No, he's not there. And not only that, the reason that they handle the press so well is because Glenn Robinson is such a great athlete at center that he can come out to midcourt, take that pass over the 2-1-2 zone. He's the best athlete on the floor.
Well, we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello?
Yes?
Yes, I want to talk about Ron Gant.
Okay.
Ron Gant?
Right.
All right, we can talk about Ron Gant for the time being. What's your question?
Yes, I want to know, why did they trade him?
Why did they trade him?
Why didn't they trade him?
Why did they?
Why did
Well,
they?
they released him.
They released him.
Well,
They
she
couldn't.
released him, yeah.
They couldn't trade him because if they traded him, the team that traded for him would have to pick up his $5.4 million salary.
Uh-huh.
So teams shied away from trading for him.
And why would you want to give up a player for Ron Gant when everyone in the world knew he was going to be released anyway?
Oh, so he was going to be released anyway?
I think everyone knew it.
Well,
I think all the baseball people knew it.
Should they have somebody that's going to take his place and do just as well as he did?
It's hard to replace those numbers.
I know
Anytime,
that's right.
anytime you hit 30 home runs, steal 30 bases, that's hard to replace. However, I think the Braves have a lineup where they can afford to try someone new there.
Okay.
He may not even play because of his leg really isn't healing like it's supposed to. The doctors say now it might be 5 months. You bring a player in for a baseball season at the end of August, that gives him 30 games to play.
Okay.
So you can't pay someone $5 million for 30 games.
All right.
That's right, that's right.
All
Thanks
right.
for the phone call.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll get back to Braves later in the program. Let's concentrate back on the Final Four. And how about a Cinderella team?
If there's a Cinderella team, I think it's going to come out of the weakest region, which I think is the West. And my pick is a number 6 seed, Minnesota. I think that they could find themselves eventually matched up with a team like Louisville. Louisville, to me, has been inconsistent at times. Clifford Rozier, he just seems to have too many bad games, and especially at the end of the year, and they have 2 freshmen in their starting lineup. Louisville also doesn't have the depth. So I think if Minnesota got a hold of them, they could really surprise some people.
I can't believe you keep saying this is the weakest bracket, because they have Minnesota, they have Louisville. You got Cincinnati, who's just a couple years removed from going to the Final Four.
Well, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but they won their tournament, and they came on at the end of the year. And you have the Wisconsin Badgers. That's a Big Ten team there that's played tough all year. They slumped there in the middle when they lost their big man to injury, but now they're coming on, okay? And that'll be a good game, Wisconsin-Cincinnati. And the winner of that game might go on. And then you have the top seed Missouri, and Arizona has the 2 best guards probably in the tournament.
That might be.
That's what, 8 teams right there that could come out of that bracket. That's a tough bracket.
One thing that's very interesting about that 8-9 game and the winner of that in the West going to play Missouri. Missouri has traditionally been another underachiever in tournament play under Norm Stewart. So I really think that Cincinnati is going to win that game, Jay. Sorry.
That's all right.
And I really think that they could give Missouri a run for their money.
Well, are there any potential, interesting matchups that we can look for?
One of the potential matchups that I'd love to see is Temple and Indiana. It was only just a couple of weeks ago that John Chaney threw a fit in a press conference about John Calipari over there at Massachusetts intimidating the referees. Well, when you think of intimidating referees, you talk about Bob Knight in Indiana. So if he's going to get upset about Calipari, then everyone better wear a bulletproof vest when he sees Bobby Knight pull off his antics on referees in the NCAA tournament. I think that'll be a great matchup. Temple, I think, would be in trouble with them, to be honest with you, because when I saw Temple play Georgia Tech earlier this year, Tech had 3 guys who could put up the 3-pointer, and they had an inside man, Forrest. And Temple's defense, as good as it is, could not stop that. Well, Indiana's got 4 people who can put it up from outside: Leary, Bailey, Graham, and Evans. And then you have Allen Henderson inside. I think Indiana, if they match up with Temple, will beat them.
I think one of the best matchups in the first round will probably be Seton Hall, Michigan State. Both these teams are good programs, got good coaching, and they're having a little bit of off year, so both of them need to prove something. The second is in the second round, if both teams win now, Kentucky might have to play Marquette. Okay, Kentucky's a spread the floor, run the floor, full court, wall-to-wall basketball. Marquette likes to slow it down, play half court. They got one of the better big men in McIlvain, and they got one of the best 3-point shooters in that Lochterman. So that could be a weird matchup for Kentucky, okay? That could be interesting. Those 2 matchups, I think, are going to be good.
All right, well, let's turn now. We have a quick phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing? This is Kenny from Dirty House. How's it going?
Hey!
I just want to give you my picks for the Final Four.
Oh, please do.
Lay them on us.
I like California from the West because of all those underachieving tournament teams out there.
There you go, Jay. Even Kenny agrees with me.
No way.
And I like, in the Midwest, my sleeper pick is Texas. I like them to go to the Final Four.
Texas?
Texas. They're red hot. They've been blowing teams out. I know they're from a weak conference, but I think they have a lot of confidence now. They're really blowing teams out. They just walked through the Southwest Conference tournament. And in the Southeast, I like Kentucky, and in the East, I like North Carolina.
Huh. How
and
about
I like
that?
California to win the whole thing.
Whoa.
I'll tell you right now, Texas isn't going to get past the first round, Kenny. They're going to lose to Western Kentucky.
Oh, please.
The Hilltoppers are just as strong.
The Hilltoppers are pretty good, but I think Texas will blow them out. In the second round, they have Michigan, probably, who has been struggling lately. They lost a couple games last week, and I think Texas can beat them too. Then they'd end up with either UMass or Maryland or St. Louis, it looks like. I think they can handle either one of those teams. And then Arkansas, who I haven't liked really all year long. So I think Texas can pull the upset there.
What do you think, guys?
No,
I don't think
no,
so. And now
fat chance, Kenny. I can't believe it.
Western Kentucky.
Now, he's got a point
I could
now.
see Texas winning that game, but with Michigan, no, because Texas is again a team that likes to play scrappy defense, try and get the floor mistakes and turnovers. You're not going to get that against Michigan because their guards are too tall.
Oh, Dugan Fife is real tall.
He's a 6th man. He isn't even
He's not a starter.
He's starting. He's been starting.
Okay, well.
Jalen Rose will be handling that basketball.
We'll call up next week when Kentucky's not, when Texas isn't even in the tournament, all right?
They'll be there.
All right.
No word.
Thank you
Thanks,
for your
Kenny.
call.
Okay, take it easy, guys.
All right, before we move on to the Hawks, let's take a look at March Madness schedule up. We have, for the 1994 NCAA Division No. 1 tournament, first round is Thursday and Friday, second round Saturday and Sunday.
And
the NIT
unfortunately, all of those are on CBS. I don't like the job that they do. I wish ESPN still got the contract to do those first round games. They did a great job.
All right, we got a plug for CBS right there for you. And NIT tournament, Georgia Tech versus Siena, Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Okay, before we move on to Hawks, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Dirty Al at Northside and the Atlanta Knights. Thank you very much. We love you both and the Hawks. Now, what effect has Manning had?
Oh, I think Manning, when I think of his effect on the club, Jay, we hit on this a couple of weeks ago, is flexibility. Really, I think Wilkins can change his starting lineup if he wants to, putting him in and have him play one or two different positions. And the thing that you said, what Manning does, is pass the ball well. I never got to see him that much play with the Clippers because who cares about watching the Clippers? But you're right. There was a game that they had at Washington. That was a tough game that they had a couple of weeks ago. And Manning just coming on the team really prospered with his passing ability. I think that is a very good acquisition.
I think also he rebounds better than Neek. All right, Neek was just a scorer. I mean, you could look at his stats and see that he was just a scorer. Now, Manning's gotten a lot of heat in the last week because they blew that game to New York and the one in Chicago where they didn't show up.
Yeah.
That was a total team loss. However, the fans are calling in, the local sports stations and saying Manning disappears in the big games. Well, he's not the go-to guy. You're not going to set up plays for Manning like you did for Dominique Wilkins, okay? So he'll get his points within the flow of the game. He's more of a full-court player. He's a defensive player. He's a rebounder. He's an assist guy. And he can score 20 points a game. However, I don't think in the Hawks offense he will score 20 points a game. He'll average, 16, 18, and that'll help them win the Eastern Conference.
But it's definitely been positive.
Definitely. I like the trade.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and as far as long-term goes, I mean, they got it made.
It's better long-term. I agree with that.
Right now, they may struggle in the playoffs because of not having Dominique to go to all the time. But Manning's 7 years younger than Dominique, and that's what you got to remember, that in the long term they'll have Manning when Neek's doing McFrugal car commercials or whatever he does.
Okay, I'd like to remind our audience once again that this is a live call-in show. You can call in with any questions or comments. The number here is 873-6713. And back to the Hawks. Can they hold off the Bulls?
I think so. I think Chicago's hurting a little bit this year. But right now I think it's time for the Hawks to start thinking about having the best record overall in the NBA for the playoffs. The Hawks have the best record at home. They're 27-4. No one else is up there with them. And they're 2.5 games behind Seattle when you're looking at overall records in the NBA. I think it's very important for the Hawks to finish with the best record in the NBA just simply because they're the best team at home. So I do think they're going to finish off the Bulls. And they're going to have to look at trying to have the best record overall.
That'll never happen, Ty. Seattle, not only do they have a good record, but all the Patsy teams are out in the West. So you can rack up wins. Where the Eastern Conference, they have a tougher time in the Eastern Conference. I think the teams play a more physical style. They don't run and gun like in the West. And the Hawks are just going to have to try and get the best record in the Eastern Conference, which they can do. I think they're a couple games ahead of the Knicks right now.
They are.
And they should be able to. With Starks going out for the Knicks, that's a key loss for them. However, Davis from North Carolina probably can step up there and shoot like Starks, but he's not going to play the defense like Starks. So right now is when they need to distance themselves, put some games between them. The Bulls might not even finish second in their division. I think Cleveland's going to catch them.
Right, they're only 3.5 up on Cleveland, and they're 4 behind Atlanta.
Yeah, Cleveland has Fratello, who I thought did a good job here, and they canned him like Atlanta. Atlanta likes to can good coaches like Lehman Bennett, Mike Fratello. So who needs 50 wins a year, right?
One thing when I look at this schedule, they got 3 games on the road coming up, Charlotte, Indianapolis, and Boston. And I really think they're going to need to take 2 out of 3 of those. And then they're going to have 5 games in a row at home, Jay. I think that's where they can really make a run and put some distance between them and the Bulls. And if they can win 2 out of 3 or take all those 3 on the road and then take all 5 of those games at home, which they are easily capable of doing, I think they could be playing for the best record in the NBA.
Isn't one of those games with Neek's return to the Omni or something like that?
I think
with the
so. I
Clippers?
think I don't know if it's within the 5 games. I got a schedule here. I can look that up.
No, that's all right.
You're always
probably have
prepared,
the,
aren't
we
you?
probably have the graphic here for you.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the Hawks' weekly schedule coming up. We have Atlanta at Charlotte Wednesday at 7:35 p.m., Atlanta at Indiana Friday at 7:30, Atlanta at Boston, that's Sunday at 12, and Utah at Atlanta Monday at 7:35.
Yeah, and the Clippers will be coming in on the 25th.
The game with Boston's the national
Right.
national game on NBC.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's tune in and support our Hawks. Now, we had a question about the Braves earlier about Ronnie Gant. Let's just recap for a second about that situation in case some of our viewers didn't catch it.
I agree with Jay on this. Here it is. You got a player who's going to be out after the All-Star break. And Ronnie Gant is traditionally a slow starter. So you're probably not going to get really a lot of productivity out of him until maybe the middle of August. So what you're telling yourself is that is Ron Gant being there for a month and a half worth $5 million? No. Plain and simple, that's the answer. No, it's not worth it. And you have several prospects who are ready for the major leagues and would be starting for other clubs. They just can't start for the Braves because the Braves have too much talent right now.
I don't know if they're ready. The prospects are ready. I think they were grooming them to start next year, okay? But if you have to throw them in there a year early, then they just get a year earlier experience.
I think Tarasco and Jones are ready.
The problem with the people they have set to take a spot is they're left-handed, okay? Jones is a switch hitter, but you don't want to platoon a switch hitter, especially a young switch hitter, because then that'll keep him from batting left-handed, okay? You want him to bat both ways. So that might be why Chipper Jones doesn't make this team. They'll want him to continue switch hitting on a daily basis, okay? If he plays here in Atlanta in the outfield, he's going to only bat against left-handed pitchers, which means he can only bat right-handed because they'll use Klesko or Tarasco. These are natural left-handed hitters. Well, if you put those guys in a lineup, then you're susceptible to the left-handed closer at the end of the game, or a good starting left-handed pitcher, because your 3, 4, and 5 hitters, the Crime Dog, he's left-handed, and Justice is left-handed, and you put Tarasco or Klesko in there, they're left-handed. You got to have a right-handed stick. That's the only thing wrong with releasing Ron Gant, is that they don't have a heavy-hitting right-handed stick to step up. I mean, you can't say, oh, Blauser might hit 30 home runs, because he's just not the power hitter, unless he plays in Wrigley Field every day, and then maybe he would have 30 home runs.
I'll take the argument on that. I can see what you're saying, but then on the other hand, McGriff and Justice hit left-handed pitching very well. So with those two guys in the lineup, with the way they hit left-handed pitchers, you throw in Javier Lopez and a player like Blauser, I think the Braves will be able to handle themselves just fine with left-handed pitching.
Well, the thing the Braves have going for them is they have all the good left-handed pitching. They got Avery and Merker and Glavine, and so those are the best 3, I think, in the National League, the best 3 left-handed pitchers. So yeah, they may be all right. And Ty makes a good point that Justice and McGriff hit left-handers pretty good. But how long is that going to keep up? I mean, they don't traditionally see that many left-handed pitchers.
No, Jay, just out of curiosity, where do you think Gant's going to go?
The Mets.
The Mets?
Sure. I think that New York's already contacted the Braves. I know they contacted Gant's agent yesterday when they leaked that he might be released. That's the only thing you really dread about Ron Gant, is that you don't want him playing against you in the division. I know for a fact he personally doesn't want to go to the American League because it's a junk ball pitching league, a curveball, slow curveball. He can't hit that junk. He's a fastball hitter. He likes to muscle up on the ball and give it a long ride, and he'll see more of that in the National League. So I think from him and his agent's standpoint, he'll want to stay in the National League. The Mets are the most interested. Whether they're going to cough up $5 million, I don't know.
Not only that, one thing you're definitely going to lose with him is the stolen bases. I don't think he'll ever come close to stealing 30 bases again, besides a man that's almost 30 years old.
Sitting here, I'm just thinking about how many the Braves that we have lost actually this year to trades or whatever. Bream's gone, Berryhill's gone, Gant's gone. Is this going to be a totally different team? Can we still expect, what we've had for the past 3 years? Because there's a lot of players that have been, that we're not going to be with this year.
Okay,
I don't know if you've hit on this before.
Yeah, no. I think that's a good point, except for Bream was already relegated to just a bench jockey, a clubhouse guy, which they need. You need a veteran player in the clubhouse to sort of calm all the kids down and all. And but I think his role is so diminished, they will not miss him. Plus, you got McGriff, who's a better first baseman. Well, he's a better hitter and probably just as good a first baseman. But the biggest change will be at the catching position. Without Olson and without Berryhill, okay, the pitchers have got to have an adjustment period, all right? Hopefully they're going through that now, except the starting pitching for the Atlanta Braves doesn't throw that many innings in spring training. So now you got maybe the first month of the season where they'll get used to Lopez and O'Brien. I mean, this guy, what a stiff, I guess. I thought that was a good acquisition to get this guy to back up Lopez, but now his back's so hurt he can't even put on a jersey. It's like, well, maybe it's damaged goods. So I don't know. That'll be the biggest change. However, I think the nucleus of the team is the same, and baseball is 90% pitching, okay, and then 90% mental, okay.
But it's only it's only 50% that, right?
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Well, we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, I've got a question about the Braves' future at third base.
Okay.
And kind of what I was thinking was I looked at the move that Cincinnati made by picking up Tony Fernandez and placing him at third base. And, of course, he's the Major League Baseball's lead fielding shortstop. His percentage is even better than Ozzie Smith's. And I would have liked to have seen the Braves possibly have made a deal like that and take a Jeff Blauser who, while has a very good stick and has a very good fielding percentage, doesn't have the range that you really need at shortstop. If you look at Pendleton's play over the last couple of years, his range is, or the number of balls he fields, is not as high because he's no longer able to play on the line as close because Blauser doesn't go in the hole that well. Blauser tends to go up the middle real well. And he doesn't have the quick that you really want out of a shortstop so they can make that crossover step and go in the hole. It would have been a good move to see if we could have got a Fernandez, if we could have dealt with him from a mental aspect.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And taken a Blauser and maybe placed him at third base where he would have had less responsibility and probably been able to hit the ball a lot better.
All right.
Right.
Thanks for the call.
We really
I think that's what they're going to do, though. I think that's why they're going to let Chipper Jones go down and bat switch hit in Richmond because they're going to bring him up and play short and move Blauser over to third. But this is the last year on Pendleton's contract.
Right. It's a really good point. We'll have to comment on the next show because we're almost
agree with
out of
it.
time, and we have to look at the Braves schedule before we go. We've got Atlanta at Los Angeles and Vero Beach Wednesday at 1:05. Atlanta versus Montreal at 1:05 on Thursday. Atlanta versus New York Yankees Friday at 7:05. And Atlanta versus New York Mets Saturday at 1:05. Atlanta versus Kansas City at 1:05. And let's just, support our Braves.
March Madness.
Get ready for March Madness, and I'd like to thank you both. And we will see you next week, same time, same station. Thanks a lot for watching.